Hello and welcome to Attention Central Texas. I'm Angela Galbraith, your host. And today we have with us Melissa Canaba.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good. I'm doing well.
And you are with the Children's Advocacy Center of Central Texas?
Yes, I am.
Family advocate?
Yes, that's
okay.
what I do
Well,
there.
great. Well, tell us a little bit about the center.
So our center exists because we provide a service to the child that may have been exposed to sexual abuse, been a victim. Our services are mainly for the family and the child. We provide the forensic interview as a service to law enforcement and CPS for their investigation into the sexual abuse or assault or physical abuse of the child.
How long has the center been established here?
The center here has been established for 20 years.
20 years,
Yes.
wow. And where are you located?
402 North Main Street, Belton, Texas.
Okay, so what's the process? If I were to see or suspect someone has been sexually abused, what do I need to do as regards to your center?
As a parent, you would report to CPS or local law enforcement. As an educator, like a teacher or principal, a counselor, nurse, they already follow those protocols to call CPS and law enforcement. And then they will direct you to the next steps for that, because only law enforcement or CPS can contact our center to actually schedule.
Okay, so it's for the whole family then?
Yes.
It's a process for the whole family. Is there counseling available?
Oh, yes. Yes, so our family services consist of therapy, trauma-based therapy for the client, which is the child victim, and we do therapy for kids that age from 3 through 17 years old.
3?
Yes,
Okay.
3 years old. And then we also provide family services such as a food pantry and a closed closet for those that are in need of those items.
Oh, wow. How big of a problem, if you don't mind saying, is that in the Central Texas area, sexual abuse? I know it's everywhere.
Yes, it is. In Central Texas, we do cover 3 counties, Bell, Milam, Coryell. And so just in the last year, we served 2,200 kids,
Wow.
victims of kids that were confirmed abused cases. So it is live and well within our community, within our counties. It's just a matter of us being more vigilant, catching on those social cues that may not be appropriate between an adult and a child, kind of seeing those also.
Such as?
Maybe an adult that wants to spend time with younger kids and not spending time with adults in a social setting. Even sometimes kids that tend to gravitate towards a family member that's an adult, or because all of our victims knew and trusted and loved their perpetrator.
Right.
It is usually someone close to your family. It is usually somebody that us as adults trusted our kids with them. I don't want to, mention certain professions or anything like that, because it is nationwide, it is community-wide that victims are targeted or groomed.
I was taken aback when you said 3 years old.
Yes. So three-year-olds are verbal. They can. Whenever we do the forensic interview, it is possible to get a child that is 3 years old to identify between reality and fantasy.
Right, of course.
To also kind of tell us, what happened to your no-no spot? Who are your safe people? What is the safe touch? What is not a safe touch? All of these things are very important for us to teach our kids, and also to teach them the correct names of your body parts.
Right, of course.
Breast, vagina, anus, penis, testicles. Because if you're going to give them little names or nicknames, say your child goes to school and says, "My daddy touched my cookie." that instructor is going to think, okay, he
Cookie.
touched his cookie. It may be a name for her breast or other no body parts. And so just being, very honest, direct with each child, because kids are not dumb. They are very much aware. They are in tune to their environment. They are in tune to who's their safe person, who is not their safe person.
Wow, it's just, that's a lot.
It is. It is very heavy stuff to talk about. It is not a topic that is easily discussed in a social setting. You know,
Right.
getting together with neighbors or friends and family, because it's something that can be embarrassing. To know that is going on with your family or friends or neighbors. People just don't talk about it.
Well, it's not a popular topic to talk about, but it's a necessary
Right.
topic. you know.
Awareness, correct.
And silence is most often the worst thing. People are silent about it, keeping it in the family. What
Right.
goes on in our family stays in our family.
Correct, yes. And we see that a lot. Our community everywhere, even nationwide, they keep it very hush-hush. It's something that's private. However, when the child gets a little older, even if they told mom or dad or aunt and uncle or guardian or whoever was raising them at the time, the child feels like no one protected them
Wow.
at the time when they made their outcry.
And they often act out in ways,
Right.
inappropriate ways.
Promiscuous with the females and males. Some of our younger kiddos that that have identity conflict also suffer from something traumatic that might have happened to them when they were younger.
When you think about sexual abuse, often what comes to my mind first is girls. But I'm sure there's girls and boys,
Boys too, yes.
that suffer a lot.
Yes, so there are studies that have proven that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused or assaulted by the time they turn 18.
Wow.
And only 1 in 10 will actually come out and say, I was hurt.
Is it still, it's hard for any child, I imagine, to come out and to speak up against the perpetrator, but is it more difficult for boys, it seems, to come out and speak out than girls?
Sometimes we find that's the case. Other times not so much, because sometimes it's the siblings that are being abused equally, male and female. So they will either know about the other one being abused and say, hey, my brother, I saw something happen with him too.
In the same house,
In
often.
the same household usually, yes. Or by the same person trying to groom them. And so, but our boys do have that society stereotype
Yes.
of that,
That
hard
stigma.
shell and that stigma of that, you don't cry, nothing happens, you're good, you keep that composure. And that's why our boys just tend to not want to speak out.
That's good that you have it for the whole family, because it although it's perpetrated against probably a girl or a guy, it happens to the whole family. The whole family feels the brunt of
whole
it.
family is stressed. They are hurt. They feel betrayed. They're shamed. Parents carry a lot of shame with them. They're hurt. How could I not protect my child?
How could I
What
not
did I
see it?
do wrong? Right. How could I have missed that this happened to my kids in my house? Or how could I have allowed my friend to come stay with me and then they did this terrible thing to my child?
And so that guilt is terrible. And
Yes.
so that needs counseling
They
as well.
carry that with them, yes.
Oh, wow.
So we refer our parents to other therapists in the area
Good.
as well
Good.
for help.
So you guys, how do you raise money? How do you help?
Well, we raise money by donating through our websites. We also do blue envelope every year. So we mail out envelopes, or you can come by our center and pick one up. You can also go to our websites and do it there.
Okay.
We constantly ask for people to donate stuffed animals, children's books, coloring books, hygiene items, food pantry items also. We take a little bit of everything, clothing as well, because we do have kiddos that come to our center that are in transition from, let's say, foster care to kinship, or from kinship to foster to adopt. There's just a different situation for every child.
Oh, wow. So there are ways, not only monetary, there are other
Right.
ways. I was glad you said that.
Yes.
Stuffed animals and clothing and things, necessary for a child.
Yes.
Oh, wow. And so you're not only located here in Central Texas, you mentioned that you were nationwide.
So
group.
there are centers like ours nationwide, and it is the same goal, the same purpose. So, if you just look up child advocacy centers, we have some in Texas. Like I said, it's nationwide through the National Children's Alliance.
Because it is a nationwide problem.
It is a nationwide, yes.
Tell me a good success story.
Okay.
Of a child of you. Tell me something good.
Something good.
Yes.
Well, usually something good is when our kiddos, they have to get to a safety place, a safety placement as far as somebody caring for them,
Yes.
parents, a guardian, and justice. Seeing it through our legal system also, because a lot of these cases go to court.
And that's got to be a hard process for a child.
It is. And then to help them restore a sense of normalcy and safety. So I'll tell you a good one that really stays with me is when I see kiddos that I call a month or two from now, and their guardian or parent or kinship says, he's doing good in therapy, his grades are coming up, he's doing a lot better with not acting out. He doesn't even talk about that incident anymore. We just seem to be, baby steps, but we are doing well. And we feel more of a cohesive family unit because we had these resources to help us continue that.
Oh, wow. That's great, because when innocence is broken, sometimes, you're not always sure if they're going to make it or get back on track.
Right, and trust. It's so hard to trust. Parents tell us all the time, it's so hard for me to just go to the store and trust a complete stranger walking by me to go to their car or to get a cart near me or near my child. Over Halloween time, I had some parents that did mention how they didn't let the kids go out to trick or treat.
Oh, wow.
They don't want them around strangers.
I get that and I understand that. But Melissa, I want to thank you for coming today. You and your group do amazing work, and it's a necessary work. And I want to thank you, our viewing audience. Tune in next time to see what's going on right here in our local area. Thank you.